Hey, I'm Dr. Carter. If you already know you need magnesium, this video is for you. Not what magnesium does, not the signs of deficiency. We covered all of that in a previous video that hundreds of thousands of you have watched. This video answers the question that came up in almost every single comment after that video. The question I get from patients every week in my practice. The question that the supplement industry has every financial incentive to make confusing and almost none to make clear. Which form of magnesium should I actually take? Because here's what most people do. They walk into a pharmacy, they see a wall of magnesium options, they grab the cheapest or the most familiar looking bottle, and they go home. And then one of two things happens. Either they feel nothing because the form they bought barely absorbs, or they spend weeks taking a form that's perfectly good for one problem while the problem they actually have goes unaddressed. There are 7 forms of magnesium with meaningful clinical evidence for adults over 50. They absorb differently, they go to different tissues, they address different problems. And choosing the wrong one isn't just a waste of money, it's a missed opportunity at a point in life when the specific problems magnesium addresses are among the most consequential. That's what today is about. Subscribe now and turn on the bell. New videos every week. Here is the most important thing I can tell you about magnesium supplementation after 50. The mineral is the same in every bottle. The molecule attached to it changes everything. Magnesium doesn't travel through the body alone. It's always bound to another compound, an amino acid, an organic acid, a mineral salt. That companion molecule determines 3 things: how much magnesium actually absorbs from your gut into your bloodstream, which tissues the magnesium preferentially reaches once it's in circulation, and what additional biological effects the companion molecule itself produces alongside the magnesium. This is why magnesium glycinate and magnesium oxide both say magnesium on the label, but one absorbs at approximately 4 times the rate of the other. Why magnesium L-threonate is the only form clinically shown to meaningfully raise magnesium levels inside brain tissue, and why every other form, regardless of dose, largely fails at that specific task. Why magnesium taurate is the form most relevant to cardiovascular health specifically, and why taking glycinate for a heart rhythm problem is like using the right tool for the wrong job. Magnesium glycinate dominates the market with 823,000 monthly searches and 22% year-over-year growth. It's the #1 natural sleep supplement in the world right now, and it deserves that reputation for sleep and anxiety. But it is not the right answer for every problem, and for some of the most consequential problems adults over 50 face: cognitive decline, cardiovascular health, bone density, a different form is significantly more appropriate. Today I'm going to walk you through the 7 forms of magnesium with the strongest clinical evidence for adults over 50, what each one does, where it goes, what the research shows, and exactly when to choose it over the others. And form number 4 is the one that stops most people cold, because it was developed by researchers at MIT specifically to solve a problem that every other magnesium form fails at. And after 50, that problem matters more than most people realize. Stay until the end, because the final section gives you a simple matching framework that makes this decision clear for the rest of your life. Let's get into it. Before the 7 forms, I need to establish the bioavailability principle, because it's the foundation everything else builds on. Magnesium absorption happens primarily in the small intestine through 2 mechanisms: active transport, a carrier-mediated process that is saturable, meaning it has a maximum capacity, and passive diffusion, which is slower and less efficient. The companion molecule attached to the magnesium directly affects which of these mechanisms is used, how efficiently the absorption proceeds, and how much of what you swallow actually makes it into systemic circulation. Magnesium oxide, the most common form in cheap supplements and many multivitamins, has an oral bioavailability of approximately 4%. 4%. You take 500 milligrams and absorb roughly 20 milligrams. The rest passes through and acts as a laxative at higher doses. This is not a therapeutic magnesium supplement, it is a laxative with a magnesium label. At the other end of the spectrum, magnesium glycinate and magnesium malate absorb at approximately 80% bioavailability. Magnesium L-threonate has lower total elemental magnesium per capsule, but what makes it unique is not the quantity absorbed into the bloodstream, but the specific ability of its L-threonate ligand to be transported through the blood-brain barrier, raising magnesium concentrations inside brain tissue in a way that no other form achieves. The second principle is tissue targeting. Even well-absorbed magnesium forms don't distribute uniformly. The companion molecule influences where the magnesium preferentially deposits. Glycine has receptors in the nervous system and promotes calming effects. Taurine has receptors in cardiac muscle and blood vessel walls. Malate is a component of the citric acid cycle in mitochondria. These aren't incidental. They are the reason why matching the form to the problem is not just optimization, it's basic pharmacology. Here are the 7 forms, and when to choose each one. Form number 1, magnesium glycinate, the best all-purpose form for sleep and nervous system. Magnesium glycinate is magnesium bound to glycine, an inhibitory amino acid that acts as a calming neurotransmitter in the nervous system. The combination produces a double effect. Magnesium's regulation of GABA and NMDA receptors combined with glycine's independent calming action on the same receptors. A 2025 randomized double-blind placebo-controlled study in participants with poor self-reported sleep quality found that 250 milligrams of elemental magnesium glycinate per day for 4 weeks produced significant improvements in insomnia severity index scores compared to placebo. For adults over 50 whose primary concerns are sleep quality, generalized anxiety, nighttime muscle cramps, or the low-grade nervous system hyperreactivity that makes everything feel harder than it should, glycinate is the evidence-supported starting point. It is also one of the gentlest forms on the gastrointestinal tract, making it appropriate for adults who have experienced digestive upset with other magnesium forms. Dose: 200 to 400 milligrams of elemental magnesium as glycinate, taken in the evening. This is one of the few supplements where evening timing is specifically supported by the mechanism. Glycine's calming effects compound with the natural circadian drop in cortisol to support sleep onset. Form number 2, magnesium malate. For energy, fatigue, and muscle pain, magnesium malate is magnesium bound to malic acid, a compound that is itself a substrate in the citric acid cycle, the primary metabolic pathway through which mitochondria produce ATP. This is not a coincidence of chemistry, it's a mechanistic match. Adults over 50 with chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia-like muscle pain, or the persistent low energy that rest doesn't fix are frequently experiencing mitochondrial insufficiency, cells that are running inefficiently and producing less ATP than the body requires. Malate addresses both sides of this deficit simultaneously: the magnesium deficiency that impairs mitochondrial enzyme function and the malic acid insufficiency that limits substrate availability in the energy production cycle. Multiple randomized trials in fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome, conditions characterized by exactly this mitochondrial pattern, have shown meaningful symptom improvement with magnesium malate compared to other forms. Dose: 200 to 400 milligrams of elemental magnesium as malate, taken in the morning or early afternoon. Unlike glycinate, the energizing effect of malate makes evening dosing counterproductive for most adults. Form number 3, magnesium taurate, for cardiovascular health and blood pressure. Magnesium taurate is magnesium bound to taurine, an amino acid with independent antiarrhythmic, anti-inflammatory, and vasodilatory properties that are particularly relevant to cardiovascular health. Magnesium alone relaxes the smooth muscle in blood vessel walls, reduces arterial stiffness, and lowers the resistance the heart faces with each beat. Taurine independently stabilizes cardiac cell membranes, reduces ventricular excitability, and has been studied specifically for its ability to reduce atrial fibrillation episodes and regulate heart rhythm. A 2025 systematic review on magnesium supplementation and inflammation found a statistically significant reduction in C-reactive protein, a key marker of cardiovascular inflammation. Taurine has been independently studied for its antiarrhythmic and blood pressure regulating effects. Magnesium handles the electrolyte side. Taurine addresses inflammation and membrane stability. Taking them together covers both angles simultaneously. For adults over 50 whose primary concerns are blood pressure management, heart palpitations, atrial flutter, or cardiovascular inflammation, taurate is the mechanistically most coherent form available. The combination of magnesium's calcium channel blocking effect with taurine's membrane stabilizing effect addresses the cardiovascular system from two complementary directions at once. Dose: 200 to 400 milligrams of elemental magnesium as taurate, taken with meals, can be split into morning and evening doses for blood pressure applications. Discuss with your cardiologist or physician if you are already on antihypertensive or antiarrhythmic medication. Form number 4, magnesium L-threonate, the only form that reaches the brain. This is the form that stops most people cold, and for good reason. Magnesium L-threonate was developed by researchers at MIT, specifically Dr. Guosong Liu, to solve a problem that had frustrated neuroscientists for years. Standard magnesium supplements, even well-absorbed forms like glycinate, raise blood magnesium levels but produce minimal increases in magnesium concentration inside brain tissue. The brain has tight regulatory mechanisms at the blood-brain barrier that limit magnesium transport, and most magnesium forms don't have the molecular properties to navigate those mechanisms effectively. Magnesium L-threonate is the only form of magnesium specifically designed to cross the blood-brain barrier, making it the preferred choice for those focusing on cognitive health and mental stamina. The L-threonate ligand appears to be actively transported across the blood-brain barrier through a specific transporter mechanism, bypassing the regulatory limitation that blocks other forms. The result is a meaningfully higher synaptic magnesium concentration in hippocampal and prefrontal cortex neurons, the regions most critical for memory formation, executive function, and cognitive resilience against aging. In a randomized placebo-controlled trial including 44 adults aged 50 to 70 years, those who received a daily dose of 1.5 to 2 grams of magnesium L-threonate daily showed significantly improved cognitive and executive function in just 12 weeks compared to placebo. The mechanism for cognitive benefit is the restoration of synaptic density, the number and efficiency of connections between neurons. Magnesium gates NMDA receptors, which are central to synaptic plasticity and long-term potentiation, the cellular mechanism of memory formation. When synaptic magnesium is low, NMDA receptor function is impaired, synaptic density falls, and the cognitive flexibility and memory consolidation that depend on these connections decline. For adults over 50, whose primary concerns are memory, cognitive sharpness, brain fog, or the early cognitive changes that most people attribute to aging, L-threonate is the only form that addresses the brain-specific magnesium deficit that drives these changes. Dose: 1,500 to 2,000 milligrams of magnesium L-threonate compound daily. Note that this is the total compound weight, not elemental magnesium. The elemental magnesium content is approximately 144 milligrams at 2 grams of compound. This is a lower elemental dose than other forms, but it reaches the tissue where it matters. Take in the morning or split into morning and afternoon doses. Form number 5. Magnesium citrate for digestion and general supplementation. Magnesium citrate is magnesium bound to citric acid. It is the most widely available form, has good bioavailability at approximately 30%, and is reliably effective for its primary application, supporting bowel motility and addressing magnesium-related constipation. The citrate form draws water into the intestinal lumen, a mild osmotic effect that softens stool and stimulates peristalsis. At standard doses of 200 to 400 milligrams, this effect is gentle and appropriate for adults with chronic constipation related to magnesium insufficiency. At higher doses, above 1,000 milligrams, it functions as a clinical laxative, which is how it's used in bowel preparation protocols. For adults over 50 whose primary concern is digestive regularity and who don't have specific sleep, energy, cardiovascular, or cognitive targets, citrate is a practical, accessible, cost-effective starting point. It is also a reasonable general supplementation form for adults who primarily want to address overall magnesium status without targeting a specific tissue. Dose: 200 to 400 milligrams of elemental magnesium as citrate taken with meals. Start at the lower end to assess gastrointestinal tolerance. Form number 6. Magnesium oxide. What to avoid. Magnesium oxide deserves its own section, not as a recommendation but as a warning. It is the most common magnesium form in budget supplements, store-brand multivitamins, and the cheapest standalone magnesium products. It has the highest elemental magnesium content per milligram of compound, which is why it appears on labels with impressive-looking numbers, and it has approximately 4% oral bioavailability, meaning that 96% of what you swallow never enters your bloodstream. This is not a magnesium supplement for adults over 50 with specific health goals. It is a low-grade laxative with poor systemic effect. The high label numbers are misleading. The actual delivered magnesium is negligible at standard doses. The practical implication: if the magnesium you're currently taking says magnesium oxide on the label, and you've been wondering why you're not feeling any difference, this is why. Switching to glycinate, malate, taurate, or L-threonate at the same or lower label dose will deliver dramatically more actual magnesium to your tissues. Form number 7. Magnesium L-threonate for sleep. The emerging distinction. Beyond its cognitive applications, magnesium L-threonate is accumulating evidence for a specific sleep benefit distinct from glycinate's mechanism. For anxiety accompanied by cognitive symptoms like racing thoughts or rumination, brain-targeted magnesium L-threonate provides additional benefit beyond what glycinate achieves through peripheral nervous system calming alone. The distinction is clinically relevant for adults over 50 experiencing the specific type of sleep disruption characterized by a racing or ruminating mind at bedtime. The cognitive hyperactivity that prevents sleep onset rather than simple nervous system arousal. Glycinate calms the peripheral nervous system. L-threonate calms the cognitive noise at the source in the prefrontal cortex by restoring synaptic magnesium in the brain regions generating that activity. For adults whose sleep problem is specifically characterized by an inability to quiet racing thoughts, L-threonate deserves consideration alongside or instead of glycinate. This is the distinction between peripheral nervous system hyperarousal on glycinate's target and cognitive hyperactivity at bedtime, L-threonate's target. If you recognize the right form for your primary problem, what comes next is the matching framework that makes this decision simple. Here is the framework I use with patients, the simplest version of a complex decision. Start with your primary problem. Choose the form that matches it. If your primary problem is physical restlessness, general anxiety, or difficulty falling asleep, magnesium glycinate, 200 to 400 milligrams elemental in the evening. Glycine's calming effect on the peripheral nervous system compounds with the natural circadian drop in cortisol to support sleep onset. This is the right starting point for the majority of adults over 50 who are new to magnesium supplementation. If your primary sleep problem is specifically a racing or ruminating mind at bedtime, thoughts that won't quiet down, mental hyperactivity that prevents sleep onset, magnesium L-threonate is the more targeted option. Unlike glycinate, which calms the peripheral nervous system, L-threonate crosses the blood-brain barrier and restores synaptic magnesium in the prefrontal cortex, the brain region generating that mental noise. Dose: 1,500 to 2,000 milligrams of compound daily, taken in the morning or split between morning and evening. Both options address sleep, but through different mechanisms for different sleep problems. If your primary problem is chronic fatigue, low energy, or muscle pain without clear cause, magnesium malate, 200 to 400 milligrams elemental in the morning. The malic acid component directly addresses the mitochondrial energy deficit that drives these symptoms. Unlike glycinate, the energizing effect of malate makes evening dosing counterproductive for most adults. If your primary problem is blood pressure, heart palpitations, or cardiovascular inflammation, magnesium taurate, 200 to 400 milligrams elemental, split across 2 doses with meals. Discuss with your cardiologist or physician if you are already on antihypertensive or antiarrhythmic medication. If your primary problem is memory, cognitive sharpness, brain fog, or cognitive aging, magnesium L-threonate, 1,500 to 2,000 milligrams of compound daily, the only form that meaningfully raises brain magnesium. This is the highest cost form and the one with the most specific and compelling evidence for the brain-specific application. If your primary problem is constipation or general magnesium replenishment, magnesium citrate, 200 to 400 milligrams elemental with meals. If you are taking magnesium oxide, switch. Any of the above forms will deliver more actual magnesium to your tissues at the same or lower dose. Can you combine forms? Yes, and many adults over 50 with multiple targets benefit from combining. The most evidence-supported combination for adults over 50 is glycinate in the evening for sleep plus L-threonate in the morning for cognitive health. The two forms address different tissues through different mechanisms and can be taken simultaneously without interaction. For adults whose sleep problem is specifically racing thoughts, L-threonate alone or L-threonate in the evening combined with glycinate may be more effective than glycinate alone. What about total dose? For most adults over 50, the target is 300 to 400 milligrams of elemental magnesium daily from all sources. Food plus supplement. Most adults are consuming approximately 200 to 250 milligrams from food, leaving a gap of 50 to 200 milligrams that supplementation can address. Important note: adults with chronic kidney disease should not supplement magnesium without physician supervision. The kidneys are responsible for magnesium excretion, and impaired kidney function can allow magnesium to accumulate to toxic levels. Adults taking diuretics, proton pump inhibitors, antibiotics, or medications for heart rhythm should discuss magnesium supplementation with their physician before starting. Magnesium interacts with multiple drug classes in clinically significant ways. Today you heard what the supplement industry has every financial incentive to keep complicated and every reason to never simplify for you. The mineral is the same in every bottle. The molecule attached to it changes everything. You saw the 7 forms. Glycinate, the best all-purpose form for sleep and nervous system calming, with a 2025 randomized trial confirming its sleep benefit at 250 milligrams. Malate, the mitochondrial energy form for chronic fatigue and muscle pain. Taurate, the cardiovascular form combining magnesium's calcium channel blocking effect with taurine's antiarrhythmic and anti-inflammatory properties. L-threonate, the MIT-developed form that crosses the blood-brain barrier and is the only one clinically shown to raise brain magnesium levels, with a randomized trial in adults 50 to 70 showing meaningful cognitive improvement in 12 weeks. Citrate, the accessible general purpose and digestive support form. Oxide, the form to avoid, with 4% bioavailability that explains why so many people feel nothing from the magnesium they're already taking. And L-threonate for sleep, the emerging evidence for cognitive hyperactivity at bedtime that glycinate alone doesn't fully address, and you heard the framework. Match the form to the problem. Glycinate for sleep and anxiety. Evening. Malate for energy and muscle pain. Morning. Taurate for cardiovascular health. Split doses with meals. L-threonate for brain and cognition. Morning. Citrate for digestion with meals. And for most adults, the highest impact move available right now is simply switching away from oxide to any of these forms. Here's what I want to leave you with. Magnesium is not a complicated supplement. It becomes complicated when the form is wrong. Get the form right, and one of the most fundamental minerals in the human body starts doing exactly what the research says it can do. If this video finally answered a question you've been carrying around every time you stand in the supplement aisle, please hit the like button. It helps this channel grow and reach more people who deserve the clear version. Subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next videos. Share this with someone over 50 who is taking magnesium and wondering why nothing is changing. The answer is almost certainly on the label. And leave a comment right now. Tell me, which form are you currently taking and which problem are you trying to address? I read every comment personally and I'll tell you if the match is right. I'm Dr. Carter, I'm here, and I'll see you in the next video.